Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special video for you. I'm here with Sterling from Sterling's Silver Shop. You can see his Instagram. I've got a link to that down in the description. He does some really unique designs that are really different from mine.
Yeah, so we're going to be combining both our specialties to make some really unique rings. And in light of Marvel's Avengers Infinity War that comes out today, we're going to make a ring that represents Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. So it's going to be a really, really unique ring.
Very excited to get working on it. We're going to use some Meteorite as well as just some real gold. I've never even done that on this channel. So it's going to be a lot of fun for me to do, and I hope it's a lot of fun for you guys to watch. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you guys are familiar with my channel, it should come as no surprise to you that we're going to start off with Meteorite. I love Meteorite. I think it goes well with a lot of things, and especially this ring. There's a lot of interplanetary and space things in the Avengers, and so I think the Meteorite fits the theme well, even though it's not necessarily used in the Gauntlet. And so the steps I'm taking here is I just want to square everything up on this. This is a blank that's just raw off the water jet. So I'm just cutting new surfaces onto everything. I'm hollowing out the inside just a little bit. And the reason that I'm not putting these up to size or trimming them down as much is because I want to leave them as big as possible. The larger they are, the more mass they have and the more heat they can sustain before they start expanding. And that's very important for this project because we're going to be doing some gold soldering, and if the meteorite expands, that can really mess with things. So I'm just squaring it all up so we can fit it onto a mandrel, and then once I have it on the mandrel, I'm just going to shave it down ever so slightly so that it's got a new surface. That way when I put it back in the lathe jaws, it'll be perfectly centered. And I'm just shaving it down ever so slightly, that way it'll have a completely new surface. That way both the inner and outer diameter of this ring are going to be perfectly concentric. This will make it possible for me to put it back in the lathe jaws and have it perfectly centered. And now the final step that I need to do to them before we combine them to the gold is I need to adjust the width of these because we can't adjust that after. And these needed to be 7.6 millimeters in order to fit perfectly with the width of the golden band plus the gold edges that we're going to put on each side of the meteorite. So now switching over to Sterling, what he's doing here is he's got this strip of gold, and this is 10 karat gold that we're working with. And you can see one of the profiles of it is curved while the other side is flat. That makes it so you can curve the strip into a circle, and then you'll have a comfort finish on the inside ready to go, and then the flat outside is ready to press fit into the meteorite. So Sterling measured it out to the size we want, and one thing that's good about gold is that it is malleable, so once he solders it together and gets it all shaped, he can do some final little adjusting. He's got a ring size reducer as well as an expander. So he measures it as close as he can, solders it all in place, and then he uses several different tools to round it out perfectly as well as get the size just how we need it. And then the last step before we combine the two materials is adding a sidewall to the edge of the ring, and he's just making this out of a piece of golden square stock. He curves the gold into the ring shape, and then he cuts it to the exact size that he wants, and then he solders it together as well as solders it onto the ring. And you can see the gold solder that he uses, he has to heat it all up and then it kind of sucks down into place. That makes it so it's a perfectly seamless ring. You can't tell that this was ever two pieces. So next we need to switch back over to the lathe and the meteorite, and this is where I'm going to be doing a final trimming to the inside diameter of them to get them to the exact size we need in order to do a press fitting. And this can be really tricky on meteorite because meteorite can be really fragile. It has a lot of natural fractures all throughout the material. So this is a really important step to be very careful on, because if you go too far, it'll be loose and it just won't have a press fit at all. You'd have to rely on gluing it in place and it just wouldn't be as good of a ring. But if you do it small enough, you're going to need a lot more pressure in order to get the gold to fit down in there. And like I said, that could result in cracking the ring. So I spent a lot of time here just trimming away fractions of a thousandth of an inch at a time, just so I can get that perfect fit. I got it so it would fit by hand almost halfway onto the ring. And then after that, it required minimal pressure to get it to fit on all the way. So now that we have both the gold and the meteorite combined, we're ready to add that final sidewall. So you can see Sterling's taking a very similar approach to this. He's just got that square flat stock and he curves it around the outer diameter of the ring. That just gets him a really good estimate of how long it needs to be, and then from here he's going to do a little bit of tweaking to get that perfect fit. So he cuts it and adds a little bit of flux. That prevents oxidation while you're hitting it with the torch, and he uses this bead of gold solder to get rid of the seam. And now it's time for a completely necessary slow motion shot. You can see this green flame coming off the ring. That's not from the flux. That's actually the green power of the time gemstone in the Infinity Gauntlet. The power is radiating from it, and it's actually powerful enough that it can go back in time before the gemstone was even there, and the ring still has power, and you can see that visually right now. So if you know someone that might have any doubts that this isn't the real deal, just show them this clip. There's no arguing with, just facts. And then after that, it's time to solder the sidewall onto the rest of the ring. So you can see he places those beads all around the ring. He uses enough so that when it melts, it will completely cover all around the outer diameter there. And you can see he's got this very small pinpointed flame, and that's really helpful in this case. We don't want the ring to heat up too much because, like I was saying earlier, the meteorite can give us a lot of problems if it ends up expanding too much. Then after successfully completing that on both mine and Sterling's ring, I need to go back over to the lathe, mount them on my expanding ring mandrel here. And by the way, I have these available on my supplies website. There's a link to that in the description. And I just need to slowly trim down this meteorite. So I'm being really careful here. I'm using brand new sharp carbide bits on my lathe because at this point we're hours and hours into this ring. If we have anything go wrong, it's just got to be a lot of wasted time. So from here on out, we make sure to be really careful with everything we do. After getting it all trimmed up and flush with everything, it's time for a first round of sanding and polishing. This will get everything smoothed out and give us a clear surface to work on, because in the next step, Sterling's going to be laying out exactly where to drill the holes to mount the gems. So it's better and more precise to have a clean surface to work with. Now it's time to switch back over to Sterling's workstation, and he's going to be laying out the location of where to drill the holes, and that's going to be where we mount the gemstones. And this is something that Sterling put a lot of thought into. You'll notice at the end how exactly they're laid out. You can see we've got the yellow gemstone right in the middle. That signifies the stone on the back of Thanos' palm. And then the green stone on the far right hand side of the ring, that's supposed to be his thumb. And then the other 4 stones, the orange, red, blue, and purple stones, those all signify a knuckle. So you can kind of connect the dots and see the general hand shape that we've got going here. Now once Sterling has the whole ring laid out, he drills a pilot hole at the center of each of his markings. Then once he's drilled that, he goes back with a bigger drill bit and enlarges them to the exact size that we want. The yellow gemstone is slightly bigger than any of the other ones, and that's to match the gauntlet. So he's using 2 different size drill bits, and then he'll be using 2 different sizes of this gold tubing to fit perfectly down into each of these holes. And you can see he has to carefully sand each of the holes in order to get a final finish where the tube is able to fit into the hole but with a little bit of resistance. Now he's quickly cutting out sections of the gold tube, and he uses these square surfaced pliers in order to set them down into place, and then we reinforce it with a little bit of CA adhesive. Now he's using what's called a setting burr, and he's cutting a conical shape into the tubing here. That way it'll perfectly match the bottom of the gemstone, so it'll sit perfectly down in there. So he does the 5 smallest settings first, and then he's going to place in those first 5 before he does the last bigger one. And this final tool that you see him using, this is kind of similar to that setting burr you saw him see earlier, but it's opposite. So it's a conical shape, but it's going inwards into the tool. And what that does is it crimps the gold down around the edges of the gem. That way it's completely locked into place. And then he repeats the exact same process just with different size tools. He's got a complete set of these, so a whole bunch of these tools just in different sizes. So he just needs to pick the right one for the diameter of the gemstone. Now we've got everything put together for these rings. We've got all the shaping, the sizing, the setting, all of that done. And now it's time for the part we've all been waiting for. We're gonna chuck these things in acid. And this was kind of nerve-wracking. We were sure to do a few tests before, so we threw some of the gems in acid that weren't set into the rings, as well as the gold, just to make sure nothing reacted in a negative way. And the acid had 0 effects on those, so we went ahead, threw these in the acid, and about 30 minutes later we were left with this amazing etch, and this just looks so good pulling these out. As a final step, I went and did a final polishing on the gold, and these were done, and this ring just looks so good in my opinion. There's a lot of contrast going on with this ring, a ton of different colors. We've got all the different colors of gemstones, as well as that golden color coming from the gold, of course. And then the meteorite, it's that dark gray, it's a matte finish as opposed to the more shiny gemstones as well as the gold. And then the patterns on the meteorite, they're just amazing. I never get tired of them. So I just think this is such an amazing ring to look at. There's a lot going on. I don't think it's too much. And this was kind of a tricky design to pull off. We've got a ton of different colors that we needed to utilize based on all the colors of the Infinity Stones. And then there's just a lot of the stones, so we had to cram 6 of these in here. But all in all, I literally could not be happier with this ring. I think it's one of the coolest things that I've ever done. I'm just so glad I could be a part of it. Sterling was such a big help in making this possible. So I just wanted to give a big thank you to him. If you guys thought this was a cool video, make sure to check out his Instagram because he's got a lot of other cool, unique ring designs. And if you're wondering, we are going to sell a few of these. So we're going to be selling 5 of these. We're both going to have them listed on our website. And we just want to do this as a super limited run. These rings are a ton of work to make. We both just worked on these non-stop until 11:30 p.m. to get these done in time. So if you're interested in this ring or any of my other rings, there's links to literally everything down in the description. So I've got a link to my ring website as well as my supplies website. That's for if you want to make rings yourself. I also have my Instagram as well as Sterling's Instagram, his website, all of that. So thank you so much for watching. This was definitely a worthwhile ring to make, and I hope you all thought that this was a worthwhile video to watch. Be sure to subscribe if you do, and then as a final secret for you guys still watching at this point, I know this is a very small percentage of you, so I want to reward you guys. Over on my Instagram, I'm going to do an Amazon gift card giveaway, and I'll do these at the end of my videos a lot just to kind of reward you guys for sticking around. So what you need to do is you need to go over to my Instagram, and I have a picture posted of these 2 rings that we made, and to enter, all you need to do is just comment Thanos is mean with a frowny face. And 2 weeks from today, I'll just select a winner at random. I'll DM you to confirm everything and I'll send you your Amazon gift card. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next one.